Hello and welcome to another edition of Cytometry on Air. Today we're going to kind of give a wrap-up talk on the happenings at CYTO 2014. We had some people who are kind of bouncing in and out, um, which is fine if that's how it goes. And if you're still out there and want to participate, go ahead and jump in anytime you want. I'm not sure who we have left on. Anna was in a minute ago, but she dropped out again. But I also have Lauren. Lauren, why don't you say hi to the group here?
Hello, everyone.
And I see other people online, but I'm not really getting any audio or visual for them. So we'll go ahead and get started. And if you're on the event page and you wanted to highlight something or ask a specific question, feel free to add that to the comment section. We'll go ahead and address those comments or questions. So let's see what we got here. I have a bunch of items here that I was going to talk about. So this year at CYTO, there was a few new things that happened. One being kind of this focus on shared resource laboratory. So I think it's estimated that maybe a third of the CYTO attendees are involved in shared resource laboratories. And so I think this year they wanted to focus a little bit more on the needs of that group of people. And there are many different parallel sessions and workshops and things like that. But one of the things that I found a little bit difficult was having it force me to decide between the SRL management track and focusing on those sessions at the expense of not being able to go to some of the the technology application stuff, research stuff. I generally liked the idea of having those things separate. So having a separate meeting, I usually go to the ABRF meeting. So if I have all of my management needs taken care of at the ABRF or a local affiliate of ABRF, then maybe I don't want so much emphasis at CYTO. The other things in terms of actual SRL stuff that was covered, pretty heavy emphasis on the management side, especially the best practices, I think, was really the thing that a lot of people attended and had a really good discussions going on there. Best practices in terms of how much staff you should have and maybe what services you offer, biosafety concerns, training. And I know maybe Lauren, you could talk about this. That iLab does a little core facility management, like a survey that they do every year, which kind of grabs some of this information as well. I doubt you were at the SRL workshop, but we probably talked about a lot of the same things that happen in your survey that you guys send out.
Yeah, actually, that's kind of an interesting idea. We did not get to attend. However, the benchmarking study that you mentioned, we do annually, and we open up to all folks in the SRL world, and we get responses back from customers that work with us, customers that don't work with us, and then we provide that information back to kind of the community. And I know that we'd be more than happy to provide that, maybe as a guide to either ABRF or CYTO discussions to say, hey, I know we feel like we're spending a lot of time in one area, but it turns out that's true across all of the SRLs out there, that it's taking up a significant portion of time. Or we're doing new activities, perhaps.
Great. Yeah, and I see Rich is online. Rich, you're currently muted, but if you wanted to jump in, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and jump in whenever you want. Um, so yeah, so I think this idea of putting more emphasis on SRLs in CYTO is probably a good idea because you have a large contingent of SRL managers there. Perhaps the one thing I was talking to some people about, and the suggestion they had was that maybe we focus the SRL stuff to the say the tutorials, the Saturday tutorials, and get things kind of squared away during that time frame, and then maybe retain the forum. But outside of that, possibly focus the CYTO, the rest of the CYTO meeting on cytometry and technology and applications and things like that. All right, so there was also a pretty big emphasis on data analysis. I think this is something that's trending year to year. We see more of this making its way into the program. It was there in the tutorials, workshops, parallel sessions, sprinkled out throughout the entire meeting. And I don't know, it kind of feels like the informatics people are still trying to sell us on the idea of unsupervised analysis and maybe at the very least automating some of the analysis process so that we're not constantly making manual gates and things like that. I think I'm ready to jump into this world, with both feet. The only thing I've been waiting for really is an interface that I can actually understand and use. It's everybody likes to talk about, oh yeah, we could just do that with R and everything will be great. But once you get down to trying to actually do it in R, you hit these roadblocks and things become a little bit cumbersome to work with. So I think some of the most interesting stuff was some of the user interfaces that they're putting on these types of scripts that you can run through R. So, integrating it with other software analysis programs or creating a nice user interface that can kind of just click around and activate different scripts to run through your data. And I think with that, maybe we'll have a little bit better adoption of using some of these tools that for years now we've been told that we're going to need to do this kind of stuff with our high dimensional data and longitudinal data and high volume, high throughput data. And I think we're all there on the data side of things. We're doing these high dimensional applications and doing longitudinal studies and creating lots of data files. It's just a matter of getting those tools back in so we can start utilizing them in an easy to use way, so we can actually utilize them and take advantage of their best points. Let's see, what else do we got here? All right, so let's jump to maybe what most people are interested in and that's the new instrument, the new toys that we saw at CYTO. I think some of the let's say less expensive but maybe equally capable cytometers, analyzers made a big splash. I think you're probably all familiar with last year's kind of show stealer, which was the Chinese company CYTO, who came out with a 1:4 laser and 3 to 12 or 14 color analyzer. There wasn't much data to show how well it performed or anything like that, but in the interim, Beckman Coulter is going to acquire them, and we got to see some of the data this year, specifically in one of the first Frontiers lecture, I believe, that showed some of the small particle detection stuff, as well as the really low end fluorescence resolution and fluorescence detection. That was one of those talks where you kind of don't really believe what you're seeing, because some of the stats that were being shown were pretty ridiculous. I mean, looking at objects that were just a few, maybe I think one of them went down to like 7 nanometer particles or something like that. Probably not a whole lot that we might do in a regular lab looking at cells and whatnot, but obviously there's lots of applications that might utilize that that type of resolution and low end sensitivity. So if you noticed, Beckman Coulter had a big unveiling. They had their, I believe they call it CYTO Flex. Maybe somebody correct me on that if I'm wrong. But CYTO Flex was the name of the new Cytogen box that was just kind of rebranded. No real word on availability yet, or cost, or anything like that, as far as I can tell. But we'll look for that and other instruments to be making their way into the flow cytometry world shortly. Another analyzer that had some decent coverage and had a few talks was the ASEA. I believe I'm saying that right. The Novasite, another 4 laser, I think, probably 13 colors. The interesting thing about this instrument was that it only has, I believe, 6 or 7 PMTs. So it's reusing the PMTs and the filters for each of the lasers. So you're essentially able to detect the same emission range using the same filters and detectors at 3 or 4 different time windows. And that allows you to do multiple colors at the same time with less hardware, which obviously lowers the cost, which is going to be the big thing on that. I know I didn't really see too much about this, but I think the CYTO Flow is the company with the CYTO Express. Again, low cost instrument used for kind of routine analysis, but I don't really have much information on that. The Attune NXT was launched, I guess, officially at CYTO. I think it was launched at AAI a few weeks ago or months ago, but this is kind of one of the first times that us in the cytometry community probably got to see the newest instrument from Life Technologies. And I think one of the nice things that at least I took home from listening to their seminar was kind of the same size box with easy upgrades in the field, essentially. So you can come in at a 1 laser system and easily upgrade to a 4 laser system, because a lot of the electronic components and maybe even detectors or laser mounts and things like that are already built in to the system. So when you buy it. Hey, Derek.
Hi, Ryan. I made it.
Great, good to have you. So I was just talking a little bit about the Attune NXT and other analyzers that we saw at CYTO.
Sure.
So feel free to jump in whenever. So we talked about the ASEA Novasite already, and the Cytogen, now Beckman Coulter instrument.
Yeah, I quite like the look of that.
Yeah, the Coulter one, you mean?
The Coulter one, yeah.
Yeah. So the one thing I guess I never got exact confirmation on was, I believe they're using avalanche photodiodes as the detectors on that. Do you know if
That's
that?
what they said. Yes.
Okay, and so the idea behind that is, obviously they're really good for low end sensitivity, but I've also heard that the cooling requirements for them has always been what's kept them from being um, part of the instruments that we have been using in the past. But I guess they've come up with a solution for that.
Well, we'd have to get our hands on it and try it, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
The
Obviously,
data looked good.
the data was fairly impressive, so um, it would be good to reconfirm some of that stuff in the real world, so to speak. Um, what else? Any other analyzers that you saw that? I guess maybe we could throw in and I don't mean to butcher this name, the Zellkraft work, which is kind of an analyzer, image-based analyzer, also done on a chip. So I think the benefits of this would be doing. I think they have panels of doing up to like 30 markers on a single sample. And so one of the interesting things here is that they do it iteratively, so that meaning they can stain the sample with a set of antibodies, collect the data, and then bleach to fluorescence, and then add more antibodies in this using the same channel. So in the end, once you overlay all the data, you get your 30-plex data, but you don't need necessarily 30 different detectors and sets of filters to do that.
Yeah, I didn't get to see that one too much, I have to say, but that was one of the big advantages we had with the laser scanning cytometer, being able to do that sort of thing. Although we didn't take it up a lot, I must say. But,
yeah. So okay, so let's jump over to the sorters then. So sorters, I think, made a pretty big splash, and obviously the take home this year was the microfluidic sorters, and that is essentially referring to the fact that the microfluidic sorters are actually real. They're real products that we can actually use. I think for a lot of years there was always the promise that these were going to be available and be equivalent in terms of throughput on compared to conventional cell sorters, but not have the other baggage that goes along with them, like aerosols and biohazardous containment and all that sort. So we had the let's see, it was the CYTO, which is originally from Owl Biomedical, which was acquired by Miltenny. And did you get to see that at all, Derek? The CYTO?
I've seen it prior to this, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm quite excited about that one.
So why don't you give me maybe some of your impressions on it?
But the idea that everything's enclosed is one real big plus point for some of the stuff that we want to do, even though it'll only sort one population at once at the moment. I think they have big plans for having maybe serial valves in there to be able to do more than one population at once. But the fact that everything's enclosed, we don't lose anything. Can still do eight colours, I think. They're talking about a 3-laser 8-colour machine to start with, and reasonably small footprint.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to trying it with different cell types as well, because I think they've mainly tried it with lymphocytes.
Right, and that's one of the things. I can't remember what the dimensions on the channel size was, but it seemed pretty tight.
It's about 40 by 50 microns, I think, so it's pretty small.
Okay. So that
So
would
it'd
be
be
like
interesting
trying.
to see how it handles the larger things.
Yeah, right. So that's kind of like running a 40 micron tip on your ARIA and seeing
Yeah.
how frequently that's going to clog on you.
Sample prep may be important.
Yeah. So do you think this will make it out of kind of the, I think was originally this whole idea of microfluidic sorting was kind of um, directed towards the clinical applications. Do you think it'll escape that niche market and make it into the general
I think it's
research?
got to show that it works first of all. I mean, I think the people who are most interested in it at my place are the guys who are in the translational field, are sample limited, and they're potentially looking for rare events. So the yield is very important. So I think if they can show that it works, then people jump on the bandwagon.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I guess we could add to this conversation the CYTO instrument as well. I guess they had quite a few instruments there. So they had the Gigasort, which we've seen in prior years in different forms and formats, but the Gigasort is really geared towards that. I guess the super high throughput um, clinical grade sorting where they have I guess it's up to 24 simultaneous channels that you can run, and you have just one giant 10-watt laser that will excite all the channels for you. So you know ganging together multiple channels, doing everything in parallel, obviously is going to get you a lot more throughput than running just one channel at a time.
Yeah, it seemed to be that the volume you got back was quite extensive.
You mean the post-sort volume on the collected sample? Yeah.
Yeah, given the size of the vessels that they had there, it looked like you might get quite a lot back.
Right. Yeah. Well,
But anything that's got a 10-watt laser in, hey, it's got to be a good thing.
I guess maybe they'll just have to add a little, concentrator at the end of it or something like that.
Yeah, you don't want to go back to the days of the fax sort, do you? Liters of fluid for 50 cells.
Yeah. So Howie, I don't know if Howie's on the line, but I don't know if we have his volume or not. But he just mentioned here that Mike. Okay, so he's writing a message here that says that the post sort product it's filtered down to a manageable size.
Oh, right. Yeah,
so which makes sense. Let's see. So the other thing, the other CytoNome products was the Hydrus. I don't know, did you take that? Was it essentially just reflection take two? The eyesight reflection looked like it was multiple HAPS type situation where you can sort. I don't know what they actually called them on that sorter, but and then they had, which I don't know. I'm thinking maybe this is the overlooked product from CytoNome is their sheath master, their sheath management system, which it's kind of interesting. It'll allow you to just continuously fill up your sheath tanks without stopping or having to disconnect everything. So we'll just sit in line and continuously fill things up. Sorry, I'm just reading Howie's input here. I think this is probably in regards to the Hydrus. You're saying that they use separate computers for controlling each of the streams. So other multi-stream sorters would lose all streams with a clog, with every clog. Yeah. So we'll have to see where that goes. But the other thing I thought interesting about the whole microfluidic sorters is, and I think this may be more appropriate for the CYTO was, really how similar it is in terms of throughput to a droplet sorter. So the little MEMS chip that has the magnetically powered actuator, kind of opens at a rate of essentially 100,000 um, openings per second. So it's essentially the same as droplets per second. So if you were to think, you're sorting on your droplet sorter and you're making 100,000 droplets per second, statistically you would say, maybe as you get much past 20, 30,000 cells per second, your effective yield is just going to start plummeting. And I think that's pretty much going to be the rule of thumb, at least on these first iterations of the CYTO. So maybe at least from the perspective of the CYTO, a single channel running, operating at 100 kilohertz in terms of yield should give you pretty much what you expect on your conventional sorter. Do you know if that's been the case at all with some of the stuff that they've done already, Derek?
I can't remember, to be honest. They did show some data at a meeting I went to a couple of months ago. It was comparable, certainly, to a droplet sorter.
Okay.
But this is one of the metrics that we would look at once we can actually get one to play with.
Right. Yeah, I can't imagine. So probably a wash on yield, probably a wash on purity. So then really it just boils down to the huge benefit of contained sorting, sterile sorting, so to speak, and no biohazardous issues.
Sure, I wouldn't worry too much about the people moan about the price of the disposable cartridges. I think in the scheme of things, that's not really an issue.
Yes, I haven't heard any numbers. Do you know?
I think they were trying to pitch it at the same sort of price range as the Sony thing. It's about $30, isn't it? I think something like that.
Yeah. Which I don't know. That seems a little bit more, or fairly inexpensive for something that looks a little bit more. At least to me, it looks a little bit more complicated. But who knows?
Yeah, I think Miltenyi have redesigned it quite a lot from the original OWL design, which may have some implications. Those things are pretty cheap to produce, I think.
Yeah.
Those MEMS things are everywhere.
Yeah, maybe they'll have a 3D printable version, so we could just print them out in the lab.
Do it ourselves, yeah.
Yeah. So what else? So, we wouldn't. One of the big teasers before the meeting was came through the Purdue list was this demonstration of a 27 color flow cytometry application. I think smartly they saved that for the very last talk of the scientific portion of the meeting, because I think everybody, decided to stay long enough so they can at least see that happen. But I think one of the first things that struck me was they essentially launched a whole bunch of dyes and a new Fortessa platform, all in that talk that you didn't really hear too much about directly from BD or really anybody else. So, we've seen the brilliant violets, we've seen the brilliant ultraviolets, and now the brilliant blues, but there were way more BUVs and brilliant blue dyes in their panel that are actually released. I don't know. I'm only aware of the one brilliant blue that's currently released, which is kind of isn't that the Fitzy
one? Yeah,
Fitzy one, right? But they had what, maybe 3 or 4 off the blue laser?
Yeah, I spoke to some of the BD guys in the UK, and they had no idea about them either. So I think it may have been news to some of the BD people.
Yeah, yeah. So that, but
But
the
they did mention the X50, didn't they, last year? I think when they launched the X20, that was something that was in the pipeline. But I was surprised that it was that far along.
right, yeah, yeah. I mean, I had heard, the X50 as kind of the future product, but yeah, it's you would think that maybe that would have been part of an actual product release before Prateep gave his talk and just kind of, hey, here it is. Um, so so the other unique thing about their setup was obviously the laser power, which was, man, that was some serious power that they had on that system. And I think at least one of the lasers, maybe a couple of them were maybe a watt in power.
Yeah,
Right?
I think the 561 and the 640 were watt lasers.
Yeah, and I think the cool new titration is the laser power titration. That was some pretty awesome data showing the signal to noise at you know bringing that laser power all the way up to close to 1 watt and seeing where the signal kind of peaks a lot higher than I would have expected. I think the APC or one of those APC channels off the red, I think they saw um, saturation like close to 600 milliwatts or something like that. Um, but yes, the everything else was done pretty much in a standard way. So antibody titration, laser power titration, PMT optimization, setting up all the compensation controls, getting all that worked out. I can't imagine how many antibodies or how much antibody they had to go through to put together all those figures, but it seemed like a pretty expensive project from where I was standing. But I think
There can't be many other labs that would have access to all those antibodies and the time to do it.
right, yeah, yeah. Although it's one of those things that um, it would be nice to do that even on a smaller scale. Just get one of your instruments and just go through the whole characterization. Get CD4 in as many colors as you can, uh, and just one time characterize it all, and just present that to your users as here's how this instrument performs across the board, and then hopefully it stays that way um, for a while.
It's a good idea. You're going to find enough hours in the day to do it.
Yeah,
I find enough trouble getting on my own machines with
yeah,
the users there.
yeah. Yeah, I think what was also interesting was, yeah, the 27 colors is great, but I think what was just as impressive was I don't know how many it was, but let's say it was 8 or 12 colors or something with almost no compensation. Using kind of those general rules of spreading the emissions across the 5 lasers set up and ending up with you know, virtually no spillover, right? So then you're really just looking at how each fluorophore performs as a single fluorophore, not with the other spillover from everybody else increasing its background. So yeah, so they had UV, 405, 488, 561, I believe, and
Yeah.
640 were the
Yeah.
5 lasers that they had in their system.
So do you think when BD come to market with the X50, they're going to offer these lasers with these powers? Sounds like it might get quite expensive.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I don't know how doable that would be. I mean, obviously they could offer it as an option. If you just have unlimited funds and you just want to put everything on there, but I mean, at least maybe it will steer them towards, getting rid of maybe the 20 and 40 milliwatt lasers as really just insufficient altogether, and maybe start things out closer to the 100 milliwatt level, and maybe that will at least get people in the right direction. So what else? So the other thing here that we could talk about, obviously the app, right? So the CYTO app was a huge success, I believe, and I think probably was last year in 2013 was the first year that they kind of had an official app. They tried it out, and it was okay in terms of looking at the program and the schedule. But I think this year the big success was the social layer that they laid on top of the whole app. So it got people to kind of post pictures or interesting things from talks that they're hearing, and some people took that a little bit too far and were just posting crazy stuff all the time. But I think the leaderboard kind of fueled all that type of stuff.
I think it didn't quite go the way that the ISAC leadership thought it was going to go. I think they thought there would be a lot more discussion about the talks and the sessions, which there was, but it got a bit hidden away. There's a lot of noise there.
Yeah.
So maybe that could be separated into different strands next year.
Sure. Yeah. No, I think.
But it was a success. I think everybody seemed to enjoy it.
Oh yeah. I think maybe this year it was okay to let it get out of hand a little bit, and let people just kind of have fun with it, so they just get into the habit or poke around at the idea of adding that social layer to the conferences. And the company that made the app is Double Dutch company. I mean, this is what they do. They create this kind of social environment around conferences, and I believe there's a lot more capabilities to the app, like including filtering and other types of stuff that might make for a kind of a better informed social layer. And I got some stats, just before we went on air that maybe I could share with you guys. This is from the ISAC people, and so some of the stuff. Obviously, the leaderboard, the top point getter was, probably got around 4,000 or so points, which is based on, status updates, pictures, checking in, filling out reviews, things like that. But interestingly, the one of the stats is that 72% or so of the users who signed up and used the app visited the app 10 or more times. So obviously, if you went into the app and participated in some way, people went back to it. So I think that kind of retention of users is something that they can be proud of. And so out of I think they said they have 748 people who went ahead and created and activated their account within the app, which I think is a huge number. Derek, do you know the number of attendees at the meeting?
There was only about maybe 800 registered delegates, but then there's probably 600 exhibitors as well. So yeah, but that's over 50%, isn't it?
Yeah, right. I think so.
That's pretty good.
So that's good too. And altogether, there were 12,610 likes spread out. There were 2,356 comments and 1,581 status updates, a little over 1,100 check-ins. This is a good one. 990 photos were shared. Just over 1,500 ratings of the different sessions, and a grand total of 28,388 points were awarded to the participants there. So, excuse me. So that was some of the data. But so the great part about this is, I think the data that can come from this could really benefit the organizers, and looking at which sessions were heavily attended by looking at check-ins or comments or just general activity about what was going on at that session. So, and also they'd always have the what do you call it? The evaluation. So a way to kind of rate the talks immediately after you're done there. So.
Yeah, I think you're right, Ryan. It's a learning process this year, and they'll refine it a little bit, because everybody was supposed to be encouraged to rate each session they'd been to. The chairs of each session were supposed to tell everybody. Most of us forgot. So
right. Yeah.
Next year we'll be more clued up.
Yeah.
If we can get a Wi-Fi signal in Glasgow.
Yeah, and the the other possibilities here are kind of limitless. So, I don't know if you're familiar with the iBeacons that I think mostly Apple is playing around with. The beacons in general are ubiquitous, could be platform independent, but the iBeacons are kind of interesting, where they could be location-based check-ins and informations that you can kind of just set up these iBeacons at different places, and they would send notifications to your phone. And one of the interesting things is to see what maybe something like that, what effect something like that might have in the exhibitor area. If you had exhibitors who set up iBeacons around that could talk to the app and entice you to stop over at their booth as you're walking by. But that's great. I love it. I think it's good to see ISAC kind of embracing these types of technologies to really enhance the meeting. I mean, that's always been kind of a difficult thing to do. Is it's a lot of money for everybody to get to the meeting. People want to go because it's the latest and greatest in flow and image cytometry, but here's just one more value add that everybody can benefit from. I think it worked out really well for everybody. All right, so what else are we missing? Anything that you can think of, Derek? Got
I'm still looking through my notes to see what I actually went to.
Yeah, that's the worst. I mean, I think one of the things is if the app were focused on content, a little bit better, it would be a great prospective tool as well. Go back and kind of filter through stuff and see what other people are commenting and talking about specific talks that were going on at that time. But,
yeah, as usual for these meetings, there's way too much going on for you to get to everything.
Yeah,
so it's good to have some feedback on the things you didn't go to.
Yeah, we talked. I don't know if you're listening before you jumped on, but we talked a little bit about the whole SRL track.
No, I missed all that.
What's that?
I missed all of that
Okay.
conversation. No.
Yeah, so that I guess the only part that maybe you might have input here is this whole idea of kind of forcing us, especially those of us in SRLs, to choose between kind of the core facility management type of stuff and the technology applications type of stuff. So I know there's a lot of overlap, and you kind of pick and choose and go, but it's hard sometimes for me to say, well, I'd really like to go see that talk on data analysis, but I should probably go to the best practices workshop as well.
Yeah, as with meetings like this all the time, there's never enough space to fit everything in. And honestly, we wanted to increase the number of workshops. The only way of doing it was putting it in parallel with the others. We originally we should have had more space on Saturday, but then they put another set of workshops on Sunday afternoon. So,
And that's, I think, I can't remember who, but somebody mentioned to me, what about the idea of, putting a lot more of that SRL stuff on the Saturday tutorial, which would free up more space during the general meeting for focusing on the technology and applications. But
yeah, I think that depends on how much space is available in the actual venue as well. That because I'm not sure they booked so much on Saturday because there were just 3 tutorials running in parallel. Was it 5 tutorials? But not a lot of space. And the other thing we have to bear in mind there is that some people don't come in till Sunday. And if the meeting doesn't officially start till Sunday, they come in Saturday.
right.
Then they moan that they've missed the workshops they want to go to. But it's an idea. Yeah, we need to look at it. We can't just go with the same that we did this year.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's always an issue. And I noticed there were, in certain sessions, they were videotaping. Do you know if there's what the plan is for that?
In which sessions in particular? 'Cause I know they were videoing some of the tutorials.
Yes, maybe I saw them. I just at random times, I guess I saw camera guy set up.
Right. I don't know. I think maybe some of them are recorded, but I don't know about that. That's not my remit.
Okay, but no official plans to start. That you can think of that start recording more of the sessions to make them available after the fact.
It's been a request from people that they want to be able to see them afterwards. It's quite difficult to get the quality right, I think. So we did try this a few years ago, and they never really saw the light of day afterwards.
Oh, really?
The recording wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
And of course, it is expensive to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's expensive to do it through the venue, right? Because I think if you're relying on the AV group that is from the conference center or the hotel or wherever, yeah, they'll charge you an arm and a leg. But it would be some way, if there would be some way to, I don't know. I just don't think it would. The quality wouldn't have to be that spectacular, I guess. But
there should be a feedback form coming from ISAC after this meeting. This is the sort of place we can put all that down.
Yeah.
The more people suggest it, the more likely it'll get backing.
Yeah. All right. So, anything else? I'm just looking through comments to see if I missed anything else here. Yeah, I think we covered it. So, well, thank you. Thanks, Derek, for jumping in.
Okay, no problem.
I know
Thanks for it again, Ryan.
Yeah, a few other people were in and out, but and either they didn't have video or kept dropping out and whatnot. But I guess we do appreciate the comments that were added as well. So I think that will be helpful for us in the future. Again, if you're watching this later on, I point you to the cytometry community that exists on Google+. So if you just go to Google+, search for cytometry, it should be easy to find us. It's a good group of people, lots of good conversations. Anybody can ask any kind of questions and not face any violent repercussions. So I think that's always been a kind of the look and feel of the community. And if you need to get in touch with me, You can easily find me on Google+. Thanks to Derek, Anna, Lauren, Howie, Melanie. Let's see who else was in here. Dave, and Rich Hastings as well. So thanks, guys, for all your comments, and we'll see you online next time. Thanks.